is going to go in the direction of ISO standards. So the internal process has to be realistic to meet domestic standards. So in the absence of a domestic standard, I think there is a need for private sector to work more closely with government entities, not just to put the boxes and devices in an organization, but to upskill their competency to make them aware of the legal tools enablers which are available. That's one. Last point is in terms of this latest document for the Data Protection Act number 9 of 2022, which is now coming to operation from 18 March 2025. There are lots of activities that can be done to enable government institutions to comply. And you don't have to get your, in providing digital services to citizens, you don't have to get consent of the citizen all the time. You can rely on your service, you can rely on public administration services, which require certain functions to be carried out to justify processing of personal data, but the way it is done should be properly documented in internal procedures. So unfortunately, the internal procedures in this area have not been developed. So I encourage ISAPA and the private sector entities to work with SLEDA to develop those practices in the long term so that they can comply. Thanks.
So I would like to highlight on certain things. I mean, when we are trying to implement any legislation or framework, there are three aspects that need to be people aspect, the process aspect, and the technology aspect. Right. So I think that would be the best practice, and private institutions can definitely help with formulating these technologies and architectures and process aspect, process mapping, and how to upskill the people aspect as well. Thank you, Darren. And so Andrew, so you are coming with a lot of global experience when it comes to legislations and all, and you are working as economic advisor to US Embassy in Sri Lanka. So definitely, so when we are trying to implement these new legislations, we would need the guidance and help and support from people like you. So, so when we are talking about the digital transformation of the government sector, so it needs a lot of supportive economic policies, I mean, to balance the stability, growth, and innovation. So, how can these policies be structured, and what roles can officials like you play in structuring these policies and formulating these policies targeting the digital transformation and growth of countries like Sri Lanka?
It's a good question. There's a lot there. Before I answer it, though, I just want to share personally. I'm a government bureaucrat for the United States government, and as such, I've been sort of trained in living under the U.S. Privacy Act all of my government life. And I can give you a little bit of a personal feeling for what it means to be somebody who's on sort of the front end of implementing a data privacy act like this. Just in terms of kind of, very real implementation every single year. I go through a training, and it does get a little bit, repetitive. It's the same training every year. But it's a constant reminder that it is my responsibility when I'm handling any kind of citizen private data that I have certain responsibilities, and the training is sort of tailored to the position that I'm into. So the types of data that I handle in different jobs and in different positions, and different parameters around how you handle and think about it. So just one kind of a very day-to-day example. When I send an email that has any PII, personally identifiable information, the PII in it, I always label those emails as containing PII, so they can be properly digitally handled later on. So anyway, that's just kind of a personal example of what it's like to be a bureaucrat implementing a law like this. In terms of structuring policies, and then what role officials can play in fostering a competitive environment. First, I'll say that Sri Lanka, I would hope, will get serious about corruption, because I think it's getting in the way of digitalization. that's something that I don't need to tell you. You know this well. But I will also say that legislatively process is really important. The Personal Data Protection Act. It took time, right? Did you say 2 years, Santa? 4 years. 4 years to address relevant stakeholders, to take feedback in kind of into the drafting process. Did the end result look very much like the start? Yeah, it did. Okay. But importantly, all key stakeholders were consulted in that process. That's a good legislative drafting process. With the as Mr. Fernando mentioned earlier, the Online Safety Act didn't go through that kind of comprehensive, long, detailed, careful process. And what we see at the end is an act that frankly is hard to work with, and now needs to be amended as soon as it's passed. So I would encourage the entire government of Sri Lanka to do well, as has been done in the past, and not as has been done in the past here. In terms of policies, though, it's that foster a competitive digital environment, ease of doing business, anything that eases capital flows in and out of the country, investment-friendly policies, education that's focused on international connections, I think is really helpful. And then, and of course, overall security. I'll have more to say about security and cybersecurity in subsequent questions, but that's the entire digital architecture has to have a good cybersecurity foundation kind of laying underneath it to be practical, workable, and to allow for proper protection of citizen data privacy.
Thank you, Andrew. And so Andrew gave us some really good guidelines in how we should coordinate for this and all. So let's try to move into a different area. Some of this coming from the financial sector, Lanka Pay to be specific, and I'm sure that we're involved in a lot of regulatory aspects when it comes to banking and finance sector in Sri Lanka. And I know that the digital payment systems and the digital financial sector in the government is not yet fully matured, but now steps are being taken to take it to the next level. And with that momentum in process, what critical consideration should the government focus on when regulating the digital financial sector?
Niranjan, actually, we're looking at a regulatory prospect. Which to protect is the key. So, on my view, the first aspect would be the consumer protection. So, consumer protection in the sense, there are again two aspects. One is the consumer's financial entity. As a financial entity, protect the consumer from frauds and being targeted frauds. As such, then again, as Janata clearly mentioned, consumer has right for his information and consumer's information. This is the first. I think a regulator should look at this first, because that's what they're trying to protect. Then, looking at the government legislative prospect, when we have financial integrity, anti-money laundering, corruption, as Andrew mentioned, this type of need to be covered under the regulation. So, the Electronic Transaction Act has a number of, we have another anti-money laundering related regulations in Sri Lanka which covers it. Then other aspect to achieve this, to provide this end goal as a regulator, in Sri Lanka the regulator is Central Bank of Sri Lanka and the Financial Ministry. So we work with them closely. So to achieve these end targets, we have looked at the cybersecurity aspect. How cybersecurity and information security integrated in the financial system. So we can achieve this consumer protection. We can achieve this governance, regulatory requirements, and we can achieve integrity in the systems and the visibility. So these are key factors when we talk about financial system, financial sector security. Because as good as an integral system, it has to be visible to the regulatory authority. Because that's key aspect of financial control. So balancing this out would be the regulator's major requirement in setting up policies, procedures, or how many acts are in Sri Lankan country. So I have to talk about a little bit about innovation as well in this one, because regulators always in Sri Lanka, this is something that I've seen in Sri Lanka. So we take a lot of time to adapt policies and procedures or acts. As Jan mentioned, they took 4 years to come up with the Data Protection Act. So fairly long time, right? So and we have few even now we have few guidelines and technology guidelines which we consider which could be considered as outdated. So capability to innovate and adapt faster and update our policies and our guidelines as far as it's concerned, key aspect for regulation. So I think this would be the key consideration areas that we would look into answering your question.
Actually, I would like to highlight on two interesting words that you mentioned, the visibility and integrity. I think even if we take the IMF interim reports, so they highlighted a lot on money laundering, fraud, transparency, digital transformation, automation kind of things, and especially in the financial sector and also on the central bank sector. So the two words, integrity and visibility, I think play a very important role when it comes to the financial sector.
Can I respond to what Shema said? In the United States, one of the things that we're really focusing on in terms of cybersecurity is shifting the burden of cybersecurity from those who are least able to bear it to those who are most able to bear it. The people who are least able to bear the burden of cybersecurity is end users. Of course, we'll all have responsibilities to make complex passwords and change them often, right? To use two-factor authentication and other kind of personal measures. However, regulatorily in the United States, we're encouraging the shifting of the burden, the sort of the majority of the burden of cybersecurity to those who design systems. So I think companies and governments and anybody who's processing data, right? So we really want to encourage, and this is something that Sri Lanka should make decisions about as well. We really want to encourage the sort of the greatest burden for cybersecurity falling on those who are most able to actually bear that part of that burden.
So we spoke about, from a very high level perspective, about these legislations, regulations, and how we can implement these things. But when we come to implementing these things, so we face a lot of challenges. Unique challenges maybe unique to different organizations, entities, or ministries, or departments, or whatever. So, Jayanta, what could be these unique challenges which are faced by government institutions when we come to implementing these systems? I mean, what hardships they would face?
Yeah. So I think in terms of challenges, I think the biggest challenge is do we know enough about what the challenges are, right? So I think Shama was mentioning about 4 years for the Data Protection Act. That's not a long time because India took 7.5 years. Some countries can take as long as a decade, and US federal law is taking a long time, maybe a couple of decades. Right? Although they have statewide laws, so it's a complex subject. But if you ask the audience, how many of them are aware of the Electronic Transactions Act? And I was just asking the audience, so what has the private sector been doing about it? And I am encouraging entities like Lanka Pay, which is the custodian of the primary digital certificate implementing arrangement with support from central bank. They have to play a lead in making people aware. The government entities, not just people in Colombo, but in provisional council. What has been done? In my opinion, it's not enough. A lot needs to be done to make, for example, the IT service people aware of how digital certificate generation happens, how it can be adopted and simplified. And when I talk to public officers and even CEOs, they are still talking about the fact that the Lanka science system is kind of download driven, and they don't even know that there is a tool available on a smart device which all of us are using. For example, if you are doing directly banking, so a lot of fantastic work has happened through a number of initiatives like through Lanka Pay and others, but do people know enough about it in order to ensure that their process captures and embodies what is it? So that one aspect. Second aspect is, I think, in terms of cybersecurity and privacy. Cybersecurity, we have the government cybersecurity policy. And I think taking the fantastic point Andrew brought out about shifting the burden on implementing process and standards. Government entities use public taxpayers' money to implement systems. Right. So they have the burden to ensure that they comply with the cybersecurity policy. In implementing the cybersecurity policy, private sector and other stakeholders like NACA, they can help to ensure the compliance levels. The cybersecurity policy instrument is there, but I think implementation takeoff is very slow. Mainly because the basic minimum processes that should be done, such as what kind of email system you are using, how are you maintaining your records digitally, what are the access control, password control measures you have in your organization, may or may not be put into practice. So I think let's start with basics. That's what I'm going to say. In terms of privacy, finally, we have a privacy data protection framework, but I have to emphasize, we are not expecting this law to be like the European standards. It is not that model. It's a soft law instrument. It is not imposing criminal penalties, only fines. And before fines, it's a directions. But in issuing a direction, the future regulator can inform the Public Service Commission and your supervisory authorities about violations and the officers responsible are identified. So those who are in charge of systems, those who are in charge of processes involving the collection of citizen data will be responsible, and if there are violations, the supervisory authorities responsible for the promotion will be notified. That will be impacting your promotion. So I think what we have to be done is for you to have the basic safeguards when you collect individual personal identifiers, just to make sure that you don't share it with third parties, you don't keep those files open for others to come and take photos and share basic things, right? And then in the event of an issue, how do you preserve that evidence digitally so that the investigating authorities would have the ability to take a mirror copy or a copy without disrupting your internal systems. The Computer Crimes Act provides for tools where the investigators are required by law not to disrupt the internal operations of the organizations in their investigation. But how many entities that are subject matter of investigation are aware of that? And still we find these situations where law enforcement officials take systems outside the office to investigate, which is not necessary, because the law allows a mirror or a copy to be made for investigations using special tools. So I think basic housekeeping, I'm giving examples, I'm not giving examples, there are off my head, but there are a number of examples that come up and you can share in this area, and thanks for your perspectives.
think, I mean, if you are going to do something new, then first you have to understand what you know and what you don't know. That's the basic principle, right? And otherwise you can't implement anything or get anything done. So thanks, Jayanta, for that thought. And Andrew, I would like to raise the next question to you. Now, governments have to negotiate with other governments on different policies, digital agreements, and these policies and agreements and understandings have an impact on the local digital transformation and the policy aspect as well. How maybe the growth of a country's digital aspect. So, what should be the role of a government when they negotiate certain agreements and policies with other governments? How should those be crafted, and what kind of effect they will have on the local aspect?
Good question, thanks. So, as Jan Fernandez said earlier, Sri Lanka was one of the first to accede to the Budapest Cybercrime Convention, and in South Asia at least. And I think that shows tremendous leadership. Just this year, just in the past few months, Sri Lanka came aboard the UN a resolution at the UN on AI development, on future AI development, and actually co-sponsored that resolution with the United States and a number of other countries. Just I think last month, Sri Lanka decided to join the counter-ransomware initiative at the invitation of the United States. So there's a lot of really good interaction right now between Sri Lanka and the rest of the world in terms of kind of future development of IT. What I would encourage is that outward leadership, which really is admirable and laudable, should also be matched by kind of inward leadership in doing things like passing the cybersecurity bill and launching the cybersecurity regulatory agency. The Sri Lankan cabinet was very far-seeing in standing up SL-CERT. CERT is a fantastic organization who has, in my opinion, a far-sighted vision for how to secure Sri Lankan government assets and data across agencies and departments. But really, they need to be made into a cybersecurity regulatory agency to enact that really good vision. So my encouragement would be to do everything possible to sort of pass the cybersecurity bill as soon as possible.
And so it's interesting that you brought up the resolution for AI with you, and I actually made a LinkedIn post today morning regarding that as well. So it addresses a lot of points like the digital divide, the growth of AI and how it affects third world countries and developing countries, and how we should regulate it and how we should monitor it. A lot of aspects are described. Very interesting.
Yeah, and truly that resolution was an effort to say that the future AI development should include everybody, and future AI growth should be included, which is something that we believe in. Glad that Sri Lanka has come alongside a co-sponsor and say that you also want to lead. Really, what that says to me is that AI is such a new area that it's an area where Sri Lanka doesn't have to follow, it can lead. And I'm going to say more about that in the future, but I really think that it's a good opportunity for Sri Lanka to sort of jump on the leading edge of something internationally.
So I would like to pivot into a different area now. The unique challenge a lot of organizations that actually face when we come to implement these legislation in real life. So we have to have a technology architecture, and Chamath spoke about the cybersecurity aspect as well. So Chamath, I think effective incident response is a crucial thing when we are managing cyber threat. So I mean, especially in the financial sector. So relating the financial sector into perspective, so how can government agencies basically enhance their incident response strategies to face the new threats or the emerging threats that might happen?
Yeah, so first off, before I answer that question, from the digital signatures perspective, which I brought up, actually, yes, Yes, we are the Sri Lanka's sole digital signature or digital certificate provider because all certificate services provider. So recently, yes, we have been collaborating with other government institutions like Ministry of Commerce, Treasury, and Customs Department. So it's sort of a phased onboarding process. So we are in the process. So we are actually, as Chandra mentioned, the end target would be that it could go to the local level, go to the rural level, and everybody being able to sign with digital certificates, sign with using minimum resources as such. It is actually in the process, but yes, it will take a little time. And answering your question, Niranjan, so the beauty with government is like that the beauty that the private sector doesn't have, the government does have. You always have what private sector has and what government doesn't have. The beauty is that government can collaborate much better than private sector. Private sector organizations tend to work as individual entities. They network separate, but government has a capability of collaboration. And that's what SSM is actually doing right now. In my presentation, before the very first presentation, when I said talk about incident management, at a point I mentioned that the audience here, they don't need to have experts, but they need to know how to handle and how to face an incident until the experts arrive and help them to recover. So that's how government will collaborate. So experts, government rather than trying to plant experts everywhere, government have one expert body like SSL, and they can have good communication with all the other entities and give them handling training or basic training to handle situations until they arrive and manage the situation. This is how government works. Other thing is public-private partnership. The private sector is really good at innovation because there's always competition in private sector. So one way the government could get advantage is coming up to different agreements, coming up to different collaborative events with private sector to have, let's say, threat intelligence. So private sector has a lot of threat intelligence capability. They have a lot of paid services. So the government can collaborate with them to get their support and handling it. Okay. Response capabilities. Let's say red teaming activities. So actual attack simulation scenarios, actual attacks, simulated attacks targeting government, control attacks targeting entities. So these things actually government could get help from the private. So other thing like proactive measures and cyber. These things, government can organize for number of different government organizations rather than individually organizing. So in a very high level, the answer, how should government tackle this situation? How should government? So the collaboration is key. So I know SSL is doing a fantastic job because I myself have participated in a number of their workshops as a participant or as a contributor and on multiple occasions. So all I think is that we need to push it a little further, push it a little more and get everybody on board and have a proper communication channel so everybody can work and coordinate very fast.
Thanks, Sean. I think you brought out two very interesting points. I mean, something that we don't normally think of how the government, different government entities can work together. I mean, in the private sector, it's very hard to get people together and get something done. But the government agencies definitely have that capability. So to come together and play a bigger role, that's a really good point. And the second one is PPPs, public-private partnerships, and how you can get help from the private sector to enhance their incident response strategies. And I would like to give the opportunity to the audience to ask some questions. Isata is giving out very valuable vouchers to all the people who ask questions. So I think it's a great opportunity for you guys to win a voucher and sit for an exam. It's an exam on both, right?
Both, yeah.
So, questions?
I have a question to Dan.
cloud policy implemented at the moment. We are now, people are talking about the cloud solution. So, when you go to private cloud, public cloud, is there any policy implemented here in Sri Lanka when you go to like system, when in the cloud? So, is there any policy at the moment?
Excellent question. Areas which are being looked at, there are documents being developed by organizations covering this area. So I think I saw sometime around last year, around the time I was in the public sector, my former organization ICTA was trying to develop a cloud policy. There was a draft available, but the annexes are not there. But I have repeatedly told the people there as well as the Minister of Technology that this business of working in isolation in a closed environment in glass cages are not going to work. They have to engage all of you and engage the private sector, international stakeholders and folks like Ocean, and then in recent times have done fantastic movements for us. For the Regulatory Commission and Minister of Economy supporting AI. So international partners are also wanting to provide input. So why not share and having a discussion forum in South Africa chapter about cloud policy. So these policies are in the making. But in the absence of that policy, I would recommend you look at laws like the Data Protection Act, which provides guidance, right? And if you look at section 26, it provides for mechanisms. And some of those mechanisms, now when we look back, may give us an idea why we amend this. Like for example, the Anti-Corruption Act, the Online Safety Act, so as they were enacted, there is an effort to amend it. But in the same way, some of these laws cannot be static. Electronic transactions law was amended once, it has to be amended again to embody certain blockchain principles for electronic bills of lading. Those have to be done. But in this one, the moment the Data Protection Act provides for some guidance, section 26 about cloud hosting, it's called cross-border data flows. And it allows for your organization to work with the future data protection regulator to decide what categories of data can be hosted into. So the options of flexibility is provided, nothing is cast in stone.
Can I comment on that too? In terms of what future policies should be, I would be very, very careful of anybody who tells you that data localization is safer. Anybody who is telling you that probably has a different agenda. We need to shift our thinking from data localization being the way to secure data to data sovereignty, which still allows the use of cloud computing. When you shift to data localization, you get single geography risk, which some countries have seen with natural disasters, taking data centers offline and losing large amounts of citizen data. Data localization is bad for security. It does limit future economic growth potential. So I would strongly encourage that the paradigm be data sovereignty and not data localization. Does that make sense?
That was excellent, and I can in fact, we are on the subject of a panel which is focusing on securing digital government assets, strategies and technologies. I want to add to what Andrew said and re-emphasize the danger of those who advocate for pure localization. I know we have data centers, we have Lanka government cloud, you know the problem with Lanka government cloud, and in MRATs 2 years ago, data went missing. Who is accountable? Whether there are wrongful practices, practices being still investigated? What are the results of those investigations? Where are the cracks? In the digital space, getting hold of the evidence and going after the chain of events, including the cracks. Yeah, figure out what happened. It's going to be very, very difficult. And with that cloud, and quite an upgraded sophisticated cloud, there is still no disaster recovery backup mechanism. Right. Are we going into the dark ages? I think we need to think positively and proactively. Those who profess localization, I think doing a disservice by putting us into isolation. And in the era of cybersecurity best practices and international trade and digital trade, there is no option but to go with cloud-based solutions because those are well-tested, internationally received arrangements for security and safety.
And the security will evolve.
Yeah,
It's going to evolve.
and now we talk about security by design, privacy by design, and all of the international cloud service providers adhere to the international standards in this area. So we want to articulate it. And last one I want to emphasize to your excellent question is that when we look at the cloud policy, what is absent in that is we have to look at international trade agreements that Sri Lanka has signed. For example, the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement is the first of its kind both for Singapore and Sri Lanka. And of course, Singapore is using that in other countries like South Korea and Australia and all. Which is good, but we have not taken it beyond signing it. In that free trade agreement, we have got cross-border data sharing, which means cloud hosting as a principle. Now, remember, once you sign a free trade agreement, that is constitutionally binding on the sovereign republic of all countries. Can the cloud policy deviate from that? No. So I just want to pass those thoughts with any policy to decide whether a approach or a cloud-based approach.
Yeah, I also need a big to say, especially on the aspect of technology evolution. So, as the one thing that we have seen in the government is it's very difficult to adapt the latest technology. Let's say backup or data integrity and software development standards. So, when we use cloud provider, it's not our problem to adopt these technologies, it's not our tasks. So usually the cloud provider will adopt these technologies, they will run the latest technologies that we don't really have to worry about it. So if we try to localize all these operations, all this data, all these packets, then we have to reinvent the wheel. We have to do everything from our own investment. So this is a key factor or key benefit that we can go to cloud when we go to cloud. And data sovereignty on cloud is now completely handled. There are different agreements, there are different, as you said, the free trade agreements, honoring each country's data sovereignty through agreements and diplomatic level. So they are handled. Now the ground is there. All this we need to know how to navigate to the grounds and find out which is the solution. as government or as private sector, we can't step out. It just may happen. So if you look at Facebook, now we have a problem to understand whether the things that we see in the Facebook or social media, whether this original AI generated or not, is a practical thing that is practical life. And AI-based phishing, especially the deepfake generation, voice record, generated voice records, video records, can be really big problem. One thing is that again, the innovations of private sector, public-private partnership would be helpful for the government at this point. Because again, I think the government should take a collaborative approach. Because not try to tackle this alone, but
going to be essential, and that is to just educate the public at large. There's the public in terms of kind of the population into sort of a population private public partnership all together.
Yeah.
And you should play the game, it's pretty fun.
So to add to what and Andrew said, as a question you asked me, we have to start. Now, we have the gives certain minimum standards, housekeeping measures going to put in place, and then we also have the cybersecurity strategy, which refers to institutional frameworks that you can rely on. So the first point of call under the cybersecurity policy for your is having an internal set of basic measures, including a point of contact in your organization, who can help mitigate and manage it in the first instance before calling on the next level to And the new cybersecurity law is all about providing administrative measures how that ecosystem will work. But I have to emphasize and re-emphasize one thing that comes out from your questions about the need for collaboration. Shunaka Search alone can't do it. Their network of international collaboration is pretty vast. They have a very good network. They are giving a lot of support in recent times from international partners and doing an excellent job.
But also by identity and
Yeah, so we have a number of international partners, and UNDP is doing some work in this area, and we have Australia, UK, and other partners as well. But I just want to emphasize something about public-private partnerships. Take, for instance, the organization that Shama Lanka here, Lanka Gate. When the central bank in its original modernization plan towards digitization realized that check imaging computation, real-time gross settlements between banks, and the real-time settlements ecosystem cannot be managed by the government alone, they set up a public-private partnership. Lanka minority stakeholding by government. Majority owned by private sector banks, including international banks, who have shareholdings in the entity. And that was one of the first things we did at ICTA when ICTA was formed in 2003, promoting public-private partnerships. And imagine the model that it has created, and how fast they were able to adapt to changes. But have we done that for others? No. So we are repeatedly getting government entities in the field of AI and other areas. Don't think about the standard governmental measures alone. Create public-private partnerships. For cybersecurity, I think that's the way we can face with the development of issues and challenges that we need to overcome. Thank you.
And one thing I would actually maybe a different answer. I mean, as individuals, what are we going to do about? I mean, so yes, there are. If you are using ChatGPT, then we have some other tools which were derived from ChatGPT called GPT and GPT, which can actually analyze a website or a code and give you vulnerabilities, or maybe create a phishing site within minutes. But in the same way, there are tools and resources that you can use to safeguard your environment and learn about these things, learn about malware, and learn about security architecture and a lot of things. So as individuals, we should be able to use those AI tools and modern technologies to learn and develop on our own as well. There are other questions.
The location of data is quite important as a security. So, personal data protection act stated that personal data should be kept stored in the Sri Lankan legal boundaries. So, how can we use it? When you talk about the public boundaries, no private cloud, it's more costly compared with the public cloud. So, any possibility to get those data in public cloud, then apply some security precautions?
Very good question. I think the answer is already in the law. The law also predates certain principles. Keep in mind to get over certain national security and other measures, to get over certain rules, to some language is used. But I would ask you to encourage those of you to read section 26 to go beyond that first line. If you go to the next sentence after the provision, yes, right. And now we carry the law with me. And what we have is the next sentence simply saying that you are entitled to consult the new data protection authority, right? And as a PhD, along with your supervisory authority, classify the categories of personal data which will be permitted to be processed in a third party, right? Now this concept of adequacy, all that rules are issues that will be dealt by the next regulator. But why don't we first deal with this data classification, categorization, and that is an important aspect of cybersecurity.
Yes.
Classification, categorization, and ISO. ISACA folks, I think, my colleagues, can help them. The process that Sri Lanka CERT alone cannot do. Giving guidance on the data categorization and there are other tools for security purposes, encryption, pseudonymization, anonymization tools you can use to save and those data on the phone.
And to add on that, I think solve a lot of your issues and concerns and save a lot of costs in the long run as well. How do you want that?
No, I think Jas explained it very well because see, one thing that we see in policies related to technology, technologies evolve so fast that policies become outdated in 1 or 2 years. Concepts of technology, that at the time when we develop a policy for a technology, in 2-3 years concepts are completely overturned. The new technologies come up, new concepts come up. So one really good thing that they have done is that allowing the data protection authority to make decisions, not just going by the words in the document, but giving the data protection authority. And I hope the same thing will come to the cybersecurity authority as well. So because in financial sector, one thing we have seen is that with the central bank policies that we have, some policies actually could be considered outdated, and we need revisions in it. But they don't come as fast as we want. And that's another problem, that having very granular policies. If you limit if you define a technology and its use in a policy, the moment that we must be ready with the moment that technology goes outdated, then the moment that technology goes outdated, we need to update our policy to adapt it to the technology. So that is one key thing that we need to make our technology related policy.
So I think we have one question. He has been waiting to ask this question.
Yeah, I hope you say that we have taken part with them and have we signed with them and they watch it, and do we have a different treaty or we go by the Budapest Convention procedures, and what is the responsible entity in our country for such a credit
very important to that, for the back of my fingertips. We led the negotiation of Sri Lanka into the Budapest Cybercrime Convention, which is the only international treaty instrument for cybercrime and gathering of electronic evidence from cloud and international service providers, right? So that's a agreement and arrangement based on trust, as well as minimum principles we have to follow in terms of domestic investigation measures complying with human rights rule of law standards to qualify for entry. You can't knock on the door and just enter the convention. You have to qualify to enter the convention. So we did a lot of work after the Computer Crimes Act number 24 2007 was enacted to prepare the ground to go that journey. First, it was the judicial institutions that we trained. It is still ongoing. A lot of training has to be done, more training has to be done in terms of how digital evidence is handled. Second area is creating a specialized unit in the law enforcement, which is now the Cybercrime Investigation Division. Thirdly, Sri Lanka CERT supporting that work in terms of developing standard operating practices for gathering electronic evidence and managing the forensic side, right? Because we comply with that international standards, Sri Lanka was qualified to enter the convention on the 23rd of February 2015. We signed up to it somewhere on the last week of May 2015, and the Budapest Convention became applicable to Sri Lanka from 1st September 2015. 1st September 2015 is the date Budapest Convention came into operation. Now with regard to point of contact, it is a CID Cybercrime Investigation Division, which is the point of contact, and which also maintains a 24/7 international network to deal with issues when they arise. Right? Apart from that, Ministry of Justice has got a unit called the Mutual Legal Assistance Division, MLA Division. Right? They also work side by side with the Cybercrime Division to handle issues which requires international cooperation.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have to put a hard stop to this. Just of two reasons. One, I believe Ms. Chand has to leave, and another thing is lunch is waiting. And of course, being at ICT for some time, actually, one of the key issues that I have noticed related to data was not mostly these acts or whatever around it, the legal aspects of it. Major component was everybody, when there is a collaboration to be done between different ministries and departments. I have kind of been in middle of many sectoral committees. Everybody is fighting for their own data, because all of this is more of all of our data, right? It's citizens of Sri Lanka, and mostly if it is RGD or maybe Department of Technology or maybe TRC, so everybody is expecting they are to have their own ownership for different data. So that's why we are trying to build our own silos of data centers, network centers, and all of these things. So that's my understanding from being at ICTA. So one of the key things I've been preaching at all of these sectoral committees those days, and even today I have, since all of you are IT directors, since again majority of the data ownership has to come as a whole for the government. So we have to identify many factors. I mean, it's not only about the data ownership. There is certain aspects of it. You have to be identify who are the custodian, who is the data steward, and who are the users. So mainly, it can be, I mean, if it is a person's data, it may be Department of Registrar would be is the owner of the data. But of course, that information needs to be utilized by several other places as well, right? Otherwise, what will happen? Okay, we are duplicating the same information in different places, and ultimately, when we try to get certain things done, I myself as a citizen, when I go to a department, so I am filling the same information, I'm giving the same birth certificate, same marriage certificate, same details back to the respective departments to get certain things done. But ultimately, this leads to forgeries and so other complications as well. So, food for thought. So just think of that mainly, and even though the legal aspect is important, but if you look at as a director IT and you are responsible for making sure the data is available for your department, ministry, and for the other department, it's very important to understand what data can do and who should own, who will be the users, custodians, and so on and so forth. So look into it. Thank you very much for showing your attention, and on top of that, actually, let's try to do more programs so that we can have further discussions on top of this. So I would like to invite you to have your lunch and be here by, let's say, 1:15, so that we can start the next session. Thank you very much.